somehow, some way, Eli Drinkwitz is the betting favorite to be the Florida Gators' next head coach.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day we are available daily and free by visiting the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olson, lifelong Florida Gators fan. Find all my written work about the Florida Gators on swampsignal.substack.com. And the Florida Gators are obviously in the middle of this coaching search after firing Billy Napier. A lot of names have been thrown out, right? You could see all those names by buying tickets on Game Time, which today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use with Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. And you like that? That was smooth, right? That was smooth. The Florida Gators are obviously hiring a new coach after firing Billy Napier. And the betting favorite, according to Vegas, is Eli Drinkwitz now. And I do think that there's some important things to talk about with this. Part of this is because that's who people are putting money on. Part of this is because that's who they want people to put money on. Don't think that the Vegas is this clean thing, right? It's not. It's not clean. It's messy. It's dirty. It's filthy. It's gross. Super productive, but it's not exactly clean. All that being said, with Eli Drinkwitz, he's not a bad coach. Like I'm going to go out there and put. I know that Florida Gators Twitter has gotten into this. You either like Lane and dislike Eli Drinkwitz, or you like Eli Drinkwitz and you don't want Lane Kiffin. And it's like a weird thing that people are getting into. Eli Drinkwitz is a good coach. He's got his concerns like everybody else, but he deserves to be in the conversation, probably, right? I will say this. I don't think he'll be the Florida Gators head coach. So despite him being now minus money to be the head coach, save your money, invest it, do something more productive with it, because it ain't good money to say Eli Drinkwitz to be the next head coach at minus money, especially. That's not even good juice. Come on now. But Eli Drinkwitz is someone that we'll talk about as far as what that fit is like for the Florida Gators, because I do think it's important to acknowledge. And we spoke about this a little bit last week with Hal Lewis, Florida Gators booster, talking about Eli Drinkwitz was 17-19 at Missouri before hiring Kirby Moore to be his offensive coordinator. And since then, he's gone 27-7 now after the most recent loss this past weekend. And that means that if you hire Eli Drinkwitz, then you probably don't get Kirby Moore, because Kirby Moore very well might be the new head coach at Missouri. But if you hire Eli Drinkwitz, and he doesn't bring Kirby Moore, then you're getting 17-19 Eli Drinkwitz, which I don't think is the case. And we spoke about this last week again, where I understand the concern. I do think that if Kirby Moore doesn't come with Eli Drinkwitz, then that significantly increases the risk attached to hiring Eli Drinkwitz, which does make him, of course, then a worse candidate. Because when you have a head coach, which, by the way, I've said this yesterday, I think I've said it publicly for the first time, but like Eli Drinkwitz is the head coach because he had the humility to do something that Billy Napier didn't have. And if Billy Napier had the humility to do it, he'd probably still be the head coach. Genuinely, he'd probably still be the head coach if he had the humility to hire an offensive play caller. Because Eli Drinkwitz was a play calling head coach, gave up offensive play calling duties, and immediately turned around his success. Someone mentioned this in the live chat yesterday. He went 6-7 twice. He did. And then he gave up offensive play calling duty, and he had back-to-back 10-win seasons. He's probably going to have another one this year. Like, Eli Drinkwitz is a good football coach. I get there are plenty of reasons to not want him. I get that. I do think that there's a very valid concern with his ability to recruit the state consistently, because he is a dork. He is a jerk. He is anything that people want to call him. I've said it before. in my experience, like my actual physical experience meeting Eli Drinkwitz, I thought he was a jerk. He was. I thought he was a jerk. And when I spoke with other people about it, they were like, "Yep, that's Eli. That's what he is." And look, I'm not saying that he's a jerk to everyone. I'm not. This was, I think this was actually the Senior Bowl trip, which is where I met him. It's also when I got hired by Locked On. I think this was the same Senior Bowl trip that I got hired by Locked On in 2021. Where I was speaking with Eli Drinkwitz. Like, this is before he even got good and he was being a jerk. And so, yeah, I mean, just based on my experience meeting him, thought he was a jerk, but that was a few years ago, right? Maybe he's grown in that same time frame. I wouldn't have wanted Lane Kiffin in 2021. I didn't. Not because Lane wasn't good enough football coach. I didn't think he was serious, and I didn't think he was in a spot to handle this, frankly, from a maturity standpoint. Eli Drinkwitz is a good football coach. He's shown that he can get the DC hire right consistently. Anytime he's needed to make a DC hire, he's made it. It's worked out. OC, he's only hired an offensive play caller one time, and it was Kirby Moore, who, by the way, is the younger brother of Kellen Moore. So I did think that there was a chance Kirby Moore was going to be replaced in Missouri this past year, in which case we would have gotten that sample size of what Eli Drinkwitz would look like with a different offensive play caller. I do think that if Eli were to be the hire at Florida, which again, I don't think is likely at this point in time. I said this the day Billy Napier got fired, and I know, I'm sorry, the guy that commented that said that he hates when I say I said this. I every time I say it now, I think about you hating it, and so congratulations, you did that. But it's habit. It's how I talk. Can't change it. But when Billy Napier got fired, went live after, and the reason Eli Drinkwitz wasn't on my list initially was not because he's not good enough, was not because I wouldn't want him. Again, I think he's a good football coach. I don't like him personally, but if you win football games here, like, I'm cool with it. But I was told that not super likely, that it wouldn't be super likely for him to leave Missouri for Florida or basically any other job outside of a very select few. Like, he views Missouri as a place where he can have a long tenure until one of his like his wish list jobs opens up, which good for him, right? You're entitled to have that. Especially at this point with the success they found, I'd imagine it's not going to be easy to get rid of him if he has, a down year or two. Like, I don't think that they'd go right back to, all right, time to get rid of him. So he's probably got some sense of job stability and job security there. But Eli Drinkwitz should be a valid candidate. He should be in the Tier 2 W section, which for me is Tier 2 proven winners. I do think that he's got the concern that a lot of other coaches have as well. And that's fine. Like I've said 1,000 times. And I do think it's important to repeat this one for the guy that hates when I repeat myself. I do think it's important to repeat this one because everybody wants to go, okay, well, if you're not getting the best, then it sucks. That's not true. There is no such thing as a sure thing hire in this coaching search for the Florida Gators. There's not even Lane, not a sure thing hire. I think that right now what you're doing is looking for the coach that gives you the highest chance of winning a national championship while also not being incredibly risky. Because I do think that there are quite a few coaches where you go, okay, like, you got a pretty good chance if they hit, but if they don't hit, it's going to get really bad. I do think that they're trying to find a coach who it's like, all right, well, even if he's not reaching the national championship ceiling, we're still going to be pretty damn good, even if we're not living up to that national championship expectation, which we'll have a conversation, whoever the hire is, if they don't live up to the national championship expectations, then we'll have a conversation about that. But I do think that when you look at a lot of these names, you go, all right, well, as I don't want to say as long as they keep Florida respectable, but I think that part of it is, even if they're not winning national championships, are we going to be a good program again? And I think that's part of it. And I do think Eli Drinkwitz is in that section of, even if he's not a national championship caliber coach, which I know we all want, that's metric number one for me, is, do I think you can win a national championship here? That's why he's not in Tier 1. But I do think that you go, all right, well, if you're not the national championship coach, Are you a pretty damn good one that's going to consistently win 9+ games, get shots at the playoffs, and we'll see if we can make something happen? I think Eli Drinkwitz can fit in that category. And people can talk about how he's had an easier schedule at Missouri. Strength of schedule wise, I think that Eli's schedule has not been as hard at the top compared to Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. But I do think that when you talk about throughout just week to week, Eli's got a similar difficulty schedule, less really tough-nosed games, but also a little bit less of the pure cupcakes. And so I think that balances out. And I do think that when you have more talent, which he would have at Florida compared to Missouri, that changes things, right? That changes how you're going to perform there. We'll talk about some of these coaches, some of these things that you look for in a coach and what makes guys good candidates. Because I do, by the way, I do genuinely love when people come to the live shows, which I think we're going to do one Wednesday at noon Eastern. So tomorrow noon Eastern. But I do love when people come to the live shows and they bring names and they throw names out there. We had some fun ones thrown into the mix on Monday's live show yesterday. Looking forward to more. When we get back, we'll talk more about those with Locked On Gators. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for being Locked On Gators, your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. And we're talking more about this coaching search as we will. By the way, tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, we will be talking about the game against Georgia this weekend. So I don't want you to think that we're just talking coaching search. We're forgetting the season. I do feel like usually Monday and Tuesday after a bye week are generally open topics. There's no game to recap, no game to review. So Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're talking about the game. Wednesday, we will have Clint Shamblin from Locked On Bulldogs here. So tomorrow we'll have Clint Shamblin from Locked On Bulldogs. I think tomorrow at noon or 1 Eastern maybe, we'll go live to talk about the coaching search. Thursday and Friday, we'll be talking game, maybe go live one of the days. Who knows? And we will be going live immediately after the cocktail party on Saturday. But when we're talking about this coaching search, I feel like I've touched on some things that you're looking for or that Florida should be looking for, and some things that went into me putting together my list of coaches. But I don't think I've ever actually, fully explained it. And I do like explaining it because I think that when I explain it, some people bring names to the table that maybe I hadn't talked about much before. And I do think that there's value in just kind of explaining the process. And so I think that when you're looking for proven winners that can recruit the state of Florida specifically, but also just recruit the Southeast, generally prefer an offensive mind, generally prefer Power 4 experience, but that's where things start to kind of fall off a little bit. Also, you need to have a decent assistant coaching pool that you can go into and grab talent. But I do think that when you talk about what falls off, the first thing that needs to stay is being a winner, right? If you're a loser at your school, I don't see how that changes, right? If you're losing at whatever school in the ACC, I don't know why I should assume, hey, when you come here, you're going to start winning games. It doesn't make much sense. I think where we go wrong with the wins and losses is when we talk about what's your record against top 10, what's your record against top 25 teams. I forgot who we were talking about yesterday during the live show. Might have been Eli Drinkwitz. I think it was actually Eli Drinkwitz. But someone in the live chat was like, okay, well, what's his record against top 10 teams? Why? Why is that relevant? It doesn't make sense to me. It really does. I don't know Eli Drinkwitz's record against top 10 teams. And frankly, I don't care about it. It means nothing to me because Eli Drinkwitz has never had a top 10 talent team. He's never had a top 10 caliber roster. Why do I care so much about what he's doing when he's at a disadvantage, when he won't be at that disadvantage in Gainesville? If I were looking to hire him for, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another SEC job that would be available. Or even like a ACC. If I were hiring for Boston College, then yeah, I'd care because you're never going to have the same talent that Clemson, even SMU at this point, Miami. Like you're never going to have the same talent as those teams if you're Boston College. So you do need to go, okay, well, can you win games while you're the lesser talented team? Sure, that's very valid. I wouldn't expect you to win top 10 games if you're at Boston College, right? And I'm not saying Missouri's Boston College. I was just trying to think of another conference team that's generally toward the middle bottom. And I think that when you talk about Eli Drinkwitz, when you look at what he does against teams that are similar to what he has, I think he's got a pretty good record in that situation. And I think that that's what matters way more than what he's done against top 10 teams. That really just doesn't make sense to me. Just because, again, why do I care? If I'm trying to measure you as a coach, like how you do against teams that are better than you, sure, that matters. That matters that you're, winning some of these games, not getting blown out and embarrassed. That matters too. Faced number 8 Alabama a few weeks ago, lost by 3. Went on the road against Vanderbilt and lost your starting quarterback and lost by 7 this weekend. Outside of that, you're undefeated this year. You're 6-2. Last year, beat Boston College, lost to Texas A&M, lost to Alabama, lost to South Carolina, 3 ranked teams. Those are your 3 losses. You had 1 ranked win, 3 ranked losses, right? That was it. And then last year was a weird year for Missouri. I don't even know how to describe it. I think 2023 was a much better year. They had everybody healthy. Last year's Brady Cook was constantly banged up and all that stuff. You look at what they did in 2023, and I'd say that's probably the best year to look at Eli Drinkwitz and look at what he did as a coach and how his team performed. And they beat number 15 Kansas State. They beat number 24 at the time Kentucky. They beat number 14 Tennessee, brutalized them 36-7. They beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, lost to number 1 Georgia, and lost to number 23 LSU. That was it. Which, if I'm not mistaken, that was Heisman Jaden Daniels LSU. Like that's what we're talking. I care way more about what guys are doing when they're on a level playing field. Because when I look at Eli Drinkwitz's losses, I'm not like pushing the Eli Drinkwitz agenda. I'm just noticing something. This year he's got 2 losses, both ranked opponents. Last year, 3 losses, all ranked opponents. 2023, 2 losses, both ranked opponents. 2022 was the last year that he was a play caller, and that's the year that they lost games, yes. But since he's handed over play calling duty, they have not lost a game against an unranked opponent. I think that matters, right? I think beating the teams you're supposed to beat matters. I think beating the teams that you're on par with matters. And if you can sneak some away from teams that are ranked higher than you, then that's great. I think that matters. I think that matters for a lot of guys. I think that matters for Jeff Brom at Louisville, who I like. I think that matters for Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State. I think that matters for Brent Key at Georgia Tech. I think that matters for Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. Like I don't care what anyone says. I know that you can talk about Clark Lee and you can go, okay, well, he's getting carried by Diego Pavia and Pavia Magic and all that stuff. And it's like that's still a roster that needs a lot of work. And they're going out there and just playing clean football, clean physical football, and winning games. I don't care when we talk about Clark Lee. I don't care about the Diego Pavia carrying the offense stuff because he's the guy that got Diego Pavia there. He's the guy that got the coaches there to get Diego Pavia there. I don't give a damn about what he's done or that he's done it with this coach. Same way when we talk about Brent Key, which we'll talk about probably both of those guys in a minute. Same way we talk about Brent Key, and it's like, oh, well, what would he be without Haynes King? It's like, I think Haynes King is holding them back. I think that they're running the offense the way they're running it because Haynes King can't run what they want to run with Buster Faulkner. I think that's more likely. We'll talk about that when we get back with Locked On Gators. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself sometimes, with endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. So what you see is what you pay. I go to concerts with it. I've gone to baseball games, football games. I went to a basketball game as well. I've gone to a play on it. I've done everything on Game Time. I love it. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. You should Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thanks again for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And when we're talking about this Florida Gators coaching search and the candidates and what you're looking for, I do think that you could talk about guys like Brent Key, who's won a lot of football games in a short amount of time, right? He had, what was it, 2 6-7 seasons, and they're 8-0 right now at Georgia Tech, which is not an easy thing to do. That's not a school known for being just resource rich. They've gone out there and they've played physical, hard-nosed, consistent football, similar to Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, actually. Guys that are taking these programs that don't have the investment, that don't have the buy-in, that don't have the talent, and they're just going, hey, we're going to play clean, physical football. We're going to be consistent. We are not going to be out-physicaled, and we're going to win football games there. We're going to beat with that approach, we should beat the teams that we should beat, or we're going to beat the teams that we should beat. And we're going to probably sneak some games away from teams that we shouldn't beat. Having a Diego Pavia, having a Haynes King gives you a little bit of that volatility of saying, hey, if they're on, we could really pop someone. If they're off, it's going to be ugly. I think Diego Pavia does a lot more for Vanderbilt than Haynes King does for Georgia Tech. I think Haynes King, or the way that Buster Faulkner runs the Georgia Tech offense, is because he has to run it that way with Haynes King at quarterback, right? Like, I think that's the thing. Brent Key, good coordinator hires so far. Interested to know if that would carry over. I do think that Brent Key should be in the conversation. I view him as one of those coaches where you go, all right, he's going to be pretty damn good. His offensive line reputation is phenomenal. His offensive line development is phenomenal. Matters. Clark Lee, more the defensive-minded guy. Not sure what he would do coordinator style long-term or coordinator-wise long-term. Would be interested to know what that would look like. Not going to know it until we get there, though, right? Which I don't think is going to happen, by the way. I think Clark Lee is going to be at Vanderbilt for at least another year or two. And then maybe get, like, I do think that there's going to be administration that go, hey, what are you going to do without Diego Pavia? Like, what are you going to be without this dynamic quarterback? I think that that's a fair question. I think Brent Key with Haynes King is less important because Haynes King hasn't done the hero ball things that Diego Pavia has done. Brent Key has his guys playing good physical football. They went to the wire with Georgia. Multiple overtimes. Hell of a game that was, by the way. I see a name that people keep bringing up is Rhett Lashley. No need to. We've already gotten the reports. Florida vetted him. Didn't go anywhere. Why? I don't know. No, he was on my list for Tier 2W, but didn't go anywhere. When we drop from the Power 4 section, because again, Power 4 winners is the important part. When we drop from that, we go, hey, winners. Alex Golesh is up there in the group of 5. And deserves to be there in the group of 5, by the way. Unproven long-term, only a couple of years as a head coach. That matters, right? Absolute psycho, wins a lot of football games, 6-2 right now. High octane offense. I'd be very interested to know what his offense looks like without a Byron Brown type athlete. If he's ever going to have a non-Byron Brown type athlete, like maybe that's the kind of guy he's trying to bring in all the time. Maybe that's what he wants to do. I would hope not, because that's not going to work in the SEC if he ever gets a job in the SEC. But if you're swinging on a G5 coach, Alex Golesh should be the guy to swing on. I've said that many times before. That if I'm swinging on a G5 coach, it's Alex Golesh. And I think he's got the mentality to go out there and actually pop some teams and go out there and thrive and win some games. You could talk about the Rick Ron from Old Dominion, the program building veteran that has consistently built programs and won. And I know a lot of people are going to go, all right, well, maybe that's the Curt Cignetti approach. But I don't know. I think that I respect wanting to say, hey, Curt Cignetti went to Indiana as a disciplinarian and as a CEO, technician, tactician, whatever you want to call him. And we want to replicate that. But I don't know if you can, honestly. Like, I think Curt Cignetti might be a one of one. Like, if you want to try to replicate that, Rick Ron might be the guy, honestly. I know that people, I honestly, I was surprised we haven't seen more Ben Arbuckle from Oklahoma, the offensive coordinator. But I'm glad we haven't, because his offense drives me nuts. I'm hating it. We see Lance Leipold a lot as like the guy that can be the program building disciplinarian that maximizes resources, but I don't think he maximizes resources enough. Going the G5 route, Ryan Silverfield from Memphis. I'm not a huge fan of his. He's won somewhat inconsistently, hasn't done it long term. Eric Morris in North Texas, really fun, and I love Eric Morris. I love GJ Kinney at Texas State too. They're both guys that I think are looking at Power 4 jobs in Texas that might open up at some point soon. And I think they're waiting for those. And they should, honestly. Like GJ Kinney, with the athletes, the quarterbacks that you have in Texas, you're going to be able to get guys to Texas State that are talented. Same thing with Eric Morris in North Texas. If you guys get more buy-in from boosters, from the administration, you're going to be able to get those athletes to those schools and have some fun, have quarterbacks there, have some fun, and be able to create and be explosive for a really long time. And then whenever those big Texas jobs open up, then you go, look what I've done with the resources I have. Imagine what I can do with more resources. I like Eric Morris more than I like GJ Kinney. Someone mentioned Eric Morris when we went live last week. And again, really fun air raid style. Like, if you haven't watched a North Texas game yet, in fact, I'm going to look up when their next game is to see if that's to see when that is, because I do think that they're a ton of fun to watch. I do think that if you get the opportunity, you should watch North Texas play football, because they are one hell of a show. They got Navy this Saturday. Noon Eastern time. Just saying. 7-1 North Texas versus 7-0 Navy. I love the game. Just go watch North Texas offense. I'm going to say they're going to beat Navy. Honestly, I'll say that because I think that they're going to just say, hey, we're going to put up points. You try to catch us. Eric Morris with North Texas, they've improved year over year. Big fan. I just don't think he's going to be in Florida. I think he's going to stay in Texas, where he has a ton of ties and probably should and probably will thrive. But he's a name that gets brought up, and so we will talk about the names that get brought up. If you have any names that you want to bring up, throw them in the comments. Send me a DM. Join the Locked On Gators Insider Program at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators. Links in the description below. Go to swampsignal.substack.com. You can comment there. There are paid memberships there, but there's also free content that comes out at least twice a week. There's ways to get in touch with me, right? You can do that if you'd like to do that. I am Brent Olson. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever it's in the podcast and on YouTube. And I'll see you all next time.